Order. I call this meeting of the Public Accounts Committee to order. We have just met with the subcommittee of this committee, and we have a record of decision to present to the full committee. You have that before you. Do members wish to take a couple of minutes to look at the record of decision? Are members satisfied to proceed with a vote? Okay. All those in favor of the record of decision that you have before you, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 topics plus a training session. All those in favor of those topics, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, so the record of decision has been defeated. So much for working together. So what do members wish to do, because we don't have any meetings to put forward? Mr. Gordon Wilson.
I'm not sure what that comment of working together was.
The comment refers to, we just had a meeting of the subcommittee.
Yes.
Our last meeting we talked about working together, trying to find some topics that we could agree upon, work together, perhaps do something new at public accounts where all members would look at a witness who has come in and work together in questioning. We came to, the subcommittee came to an agreement on some topics. They've been brought to the full committee. The full committee has voted them down. We don't have any topics. There has been a bit of a delay with the House being prorogued, so we are no further ahead, and that's why I say so much for us working together.
Thank you.
So
thank you for clarifying that.
Do you wish to address that?
I'd like to make a motion that would, I think, address the same issue. It's how to get there. I move that the agenda items for PAC be set through the Auditor General reports beginning with the May 29th, 2018 performance, and that future agenda sequences for scheduling to follow the order of chapters for each subsequent report tabled by the Auditor General with appropriate department witnesses. And by making that motion, I would like to just add a few comments that the topics that were brought forward by the subcommittee, I think if members will review those topics, would address almost the entirety of all those topics that were there. I'd like to add that this is I know this is a major change from the standard that we've followed. This brings this committee to full accountability, full transparency, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think it follows best practices that we have across Canada. It's a standard and a process that many other public accounts committees follow. It will allow us to address what has been brought forward to us by the Auditor General of not having audits come before this committee. And I think that's a fair, I think it's a very fair comment that was made, that we do not fully, openly bring all of our audit reports from the AGA here. I think it would allow a lot of clarity also in how we work and moving us forward, working together. And again, I think it, in reflection, the end means is the same. It's more us moving forward with a more transparent, a more open, and a more responsive process that, if you actually look at the terms of reference for this committee, meets it to a T. And I'll close with those comments.
Okay. For the record, that all of the topics that had just been proposed are all related to Auditor General chapters, but I'll let Mr. D'Entremont comment.
All right. So we just spent over an hour in subcommittee talking about the proposal from the Liberal member. We understood the spirit of the suggestion. We actually agreed with the spirit of what was presented to us. Yet we felt that it still is a big change for this committee, and we would find a way to maybe temporarily consider it, to look at the topics that we had already presented and see how they fit into the proposal that was being put forward by the member for Clare Digby. I was more than happy to take two of my topics and push them off to January when the Auditor General has their report brought to the floor. I think we did everything in the spirit of what the member is talking about. What I take tremendous offense is the government members once again using their majority to impose a sequence of events on this committee, their will on this committee, without working together. That was the spirit of what we tried to do last week. Said, listen, let's go sit down in this committee. Let's try to find a way to work together. And when they didn't get their way, they used their majority once again to get their way in this committee. I think, I think we went a long ways in the discussion this morning, and I find it just unimaginable that we're at this point. So what I'm going to say is this: is one, this is going to go forward because, of course, they have the majority on this committee. Number one. Number two, I will keep them to account. So the second that we have an item in this chamber of one of these chapters, and I hear one question that's warm and fuzzy and not to the point of asking the question to a witness, you know, Mr. Whoever, can you tell me about this nice thing that's going on? I'm going to call them out on it. Because if they want to work together and they want to make sure that we use this committee the way it's supposed to be used, I don't want to hear any more of those nicey questions. Let's keep the government to account. Let's keep the departments to account by the decisions that are before them. But I can tell you one thing, that I don't believe in the vote that we're going to have in a moment. I don't want to be a part of the vote that we have in a moment. I'll see you next week when I come back to discuss the departments as it's forward. I'm leaving. See you.
Ms. Roberts.
I feel that as a committee, we, there was potential for us as a group, all of whom are in our roles as elected officials, to arrive at a point where we could support changes in line with the member's proposal. But that requires all of us together actually arriving at that understanding. It requires all of us together, changing the practice of the Public Accounts Committee, and frankly, simply using majority rules to fast track changes without buy-in, without engagement, without compromise from everyone learning and everyone contributing is unfortunately, I think, at least in the short term, going to set back the goal of making public accounts a space where nonpartisan work can happen. So I regret that.
Okay. The Honourable Dave Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Definitely a bit concerned about the approach the government members are taking on public accounts. I've mentioned this before. I've sat on this committee for many years, and I think in the last number of months, and especially in the last couple of weeks, we've, as an opposition party, have shown an attempt to try to address some of the concerns that the government members of this committee have brought forward. I believe we've made the attempt to try to address some of the concerns the Auditor General brought forward to our committee by presenting the witnesses we have, and to hear the member from the government caucus say that while the witness list is pretty much everything that will happen with the motion the member made to me, then why are we going through subcommittee if that's not what we're going to allow that committee to do? So I guess similar to my colleague, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. I don't support the motion that the government made, and it's obvious that the government's going to do what they're going to do. So I too will see you next week when public accounts happens, I guess. Thank you.
So for clarification, Mr. Gordon Wilson, are you suggesting that the subcommittee of the public accounts no longer meet to discuss topics, but that the topics as proposed by your motion, where it states all agenda items for Public Accounts Committee be set through the Auditor General reports, beginning with the May 29th, 2018 performance report, be thus the mechanism by which we, as a committee, choose meetings to, or choose witnesses to appear before the committee?
No, I'm not suggesting that at all. And actually, I had another motion that I'd like to bring forward after for the subcommittee.
Well, we'll deal with one motion at a time, but your motion is proposing, I hate to bring legal counsel into this, but is it appropriate for the committee to no longer select topics through the subcommittee and use reports of the Auditor General to dictate what the committee chooses to discuss and what witnesses are chosen to appear before the committee?
Well, I'd have to probably confer with legal counsel, Gordon Hebb, but I believe that the subcommittee is a creation of this committee.
Okay.
So it would be up for the committee to decide what to then do with the subcommittee.
Okay. So ultimately, the majority of the government caucus here can decide how the committee operates.
Based on the motion that Mr. Wilson has brought forward, I'm not sure that's exactly what the motion was asking. I'm not sure. I'd have to hear the motion again.
Sure. Well, with respect to, I guess I'm responding to your comment that the subcommittee is a creation of the full committee. Right. Thus, if the full committee, which is a majority of members of the Liberal caucus, decide the subcommittee is no longer going to choose meetings, but is going to have them set by the Auditor General reports, that would suggest that the committee is thus controlled by the majority members of the committee. But I just make that comment to clarify why I was asking the question. And thank you for the response. So the motion before the committee, Mr. Wilson, perhaps you could repeat it again and we will hold a vote on it.
Yes, I move that all agenda items for public accounts be set through the Auditor General reports beginning with the May 29th, 2018 performance report, and that future agenda sequences for scheduling to follow up the order of chapters, for each subsequent report tabled by the Auditor General with the appropriate department witnesses.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Nay. Motion is carried. Our clerk will make note of that. Mr. Gordon Wilson.
Yes, I'd like to make another motion that the Public Account Committee, subcommittee, meet on a future date to discuss developing a plan to implement a follow-up strategy for report recommendations. Okay. If I could add a few comments on that.
Yes, please.
I think in our subcommittee meeting this morning, we had some excellent points brought forward on follow-up. I think it's conversations that we've had in the past, and I think it deserves another fulsome conversation, as we've had today, a very good conversation, I think, on public accounts. But I think we've all had a chance, just most recently at our National Convention for Public Accounts, to hear some best practices again that are being carried across the province. And I think a good conversation, as Ms. Roberts had alluded to, on follow-up would be a good opportunity to add more to this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We need agreement from the committee to extend the meeting beyond the 11 a.m. End time here. I don't expect it will go much further. Is there agreement to extend the meeting? All those in favor? Those opposed? Okay, the meeting will extend. So Mr. Wilson has clarified the last motion he's put forward there. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion is carried. Is there any further business to come before the committee? Are you talking about December 12th?
Just this item, if you want to defer that to the next
I actually thought we were going to defer that to the next meeting, but perhaps there's, yeah, I think we'll defer it to the next meeting given the time today. Thank you. If there's no further business to come before the committee, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.